Welcome back to the Chicago Tomahawk. I'm Mike. I got my line mate Matt with me, and today we've got Dave McCarthy as our guest. Dave, how you doing, man?
I'm doing better than I can ask for, boys. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Dave is on the SiriusXMNHL radio, and we're going to have a conversation about the Hawks and the NHL in general. So, Dave, we're going to get right into the Dragon's mouth here. How do you think the Hawks did during this offseason?
Good. I mean, you go out and you get a Vezina Trophy winner and a guy that's capable of winning the Norris Trophy every time he shows up to the rink in October. I'd say that's pretty darn good. So, put it this way. What's happened on the ice in terms of that type of movement? A+ on the part of Stan Bowman, bringing in Marc-Andre Fleury and Seth Jones. And, look, Chicago, I don't feel too bad for you guys. I really don't, because you've won 3 Stanley Cups in, 5-6 years?
Yeah.
A decade or so ago. That's pretty good. There's a lot of fan bases that would kill for that kind of success. So when you end up having that type of success, guys end up costing a lot of money, and then you go through a little bit of a lean period of time. There's teams like, the Toronto Maple Leafs that are already paying the guys a ton of money, like they've won 3 Stanley Cups, but they haven't won a playoff round yet. And you get the feeling in these parts that they're running toward the end of their window already, simply because the cap isn't rising and they're having to let pieces walk out the door that were big parts of their team for absolutely nothing, and they don't have the money to replace them. So that's what Chicago went through essentially after they won their Stanley Cup, but there's cups 3 times. Let's be clear here. But to come in and add Fleury, to me, he's got 1 year left on his deal. If he can play even at like 85% of what he was at last year, he's going to be a significant upgrade between the pipes. Seth Jones is a guy that can go out for 30 minutes. You can leave his suit on under his pads and not have to take a shower after the game. The guy just eats minutes. He can play in all facets of the game. He's mean, tough, nasty, physical. He's everything that I want in a number 1 defenseman. I know some analyticians don't seem to think his underlying numbers are very good. Okay, but like I'm telling you, when you watch the guy, there would be a lineup of 31 other teams trying to get this guy. So he's going to help on the back end a lot. Huge upgrade on Duncan Keith for where he was at this point in his career. And then, the other thing is, hopefully, you're going to get Jonathan Toews back after he was unavailable all last year. If he can get back to any kind of close semblance of Jonathan Toews, that's going to be like another acquisition. Kirby Dach missed most of the year last year. That was a guy that was penciled in as their probably number 2 center at the beginning of last year. So, for all intents and purposes, that's an acquisition. You're getting like 4 parts here to this team that you really didn't have last year. And the team in and of itself, what you did have, was pretty darn good for like 75% of the year until they just ultimately ran out of steam. So with the moves that they've made, it's going to be tough in that division to make the playoffs, but they've certainly put themselves in a position, I think, to play meaningful games down the stretch and to contend.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. There's a lot of people, like you said, the analyticians. Analyticians.
Is that derogatory? Do we take that the wrong way?
No,
Is it implied as much?
I don't
Sometimes.
think so.
It might be.
They, there's people on the completely other side of the fence on this. They're like, Seth Jones is not a number 1 defenseman. He's not a great player. Now, granted, yeah, he did have an off season in Columbus, but I don't think that you could really use the analytics on all players, by judging on what type of player they are, And Seth Jones is one of them because he does so much with the puck, away from the puck, in his own zone. Another piece that we put together on the defense this year is Jake McCabe that I think is going to be a great complementary piece to Seth Jones because his game is on the other side. He's completely different. What do you think about Jake McCabe?
Oh, I like that addition too. And a guy that came out of the system in Buffalo where, like, it's funny, anytime and like this isn't meant with disrespect, but it's just honestly the facts. Anybody who's come out of Buffalo in the last couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, you come out of that system, that organization, like with this muck on your reputation, because nobody looks any good in Buffalo. But look what happened to Taylor Hall as soon as he got put into a system where there was some structure. He wasn't expected to be the guy and run all over the ice and do everything. It's, look, we just needed to be a good, solid winger in our second line. And he played really well in Boston. And I think Jake McCabe, they took a flyer on Linus Ullmark as well in Boston as well. A goalie that everybody thinks is no good. But when you look at his stats,
really good.
Goaltending, really good. And goaltending analytics are one that I actually do kind of pay attention to, because the way you break down high danger chances and all that, his statistics in a lot of those categories are quite good. It's just that he was caved in every night because nothing was happening in front of him. So they took a flyer on him in Boston. I think Jake McCabe's going to be a similar guy. Like in Buffalo, it was like, okay, what is his role? That wasn't clearly defined. They were asking him to do too much. He's not a number one defenseman. But if you slot him in behind Seth Jones, you define his role, you say, here's what we need you to do, just execute that. I think he can do that. He's pretty quick. He's got a bit of an element of nastiness to him. He moves the puck quite effectively. I think he's going to be a really good addition to that blue line along with Seth Jones. So I think it was a shrewd pickup on the part of the Blackhawks, bringing him into the fold.
Who is your favorite Hawks player going into this season?
I don't know. Define favorite. Like,
just say like, this is the guy I'm really looking forward to seeing this guy play.
Okay.
I always like watching this guy.
Yeah. Just trying to think here. Like Kirby Dach is a guy that there seems like there's all kinds of potential there. Like, to me, he really projects as a Ryan Getzlaf type of player. He's not the fastest guy that you've ever seen, but he seems to control the game. He at his best, he seems to be able to bring the game down to his speed, and that's what Ryan Getzlaf did really, really well. So I think he's a guy that has the potential to grow into a really, really good player. I think he's just scratching the surface of what he's going to be capable of doing, and I think ultimately, sooner rather than later, he's going to grow into the role in Chicago where he's the number one center, as Jonathan Toews slips into more of a supporting role, up the lineup still, but more of a supporting role, and I think that'll benefit Jonathan as well, providing he gets back in the lineup. But if Kirby Dach can become that guy and take on some heavy minutes, be an effective guy in the face-off circle, score a little bit, but create, be responsible. I think he's got all of those attributes in his game. And again, we really haven't seen much from him because of the fact that he endured that injury at the World Juniors last year, and it really put his season behind the eight ball before it started. But I just think he's got so much potential, and then sort of his temperament as well. Like, I don't know if you've really talked to the guy or listened to him talk all that much. That guy's just a beauty. Like, honest to God, he is a beauty. He's got confidence of a guy who's been in the league for 10 years. And he's, what has he been in the league for? A year or two? That projects really well. It's not a cockiness, it's a confidence of he knows how good he can be. And I think we're going to start to see it this year in Chicago.
Okay, Dave, what do you think about the playoff chances here? I know the Central Division is still going to be tough, even with the realignments and everything going back to normal. Do you see him being a last wild card spot?
Well, put it this way. I think the good thing is that in the Western Conference, the Pacific Division, to me, doesn't impress me all that much.
Same here.
Right? Like, Vegas, I think, is going to be in. Edmonton, they should be in based on the moves they made.
I think Vancouver.
Maybe, right? Like if Elias Pettersson can be healthy and can get back to the level that he was at a couple years or so ago, and Brock Besser can can be good, and Connor Garland can slot in, and Ekman Larson looks good on the blue line, and Hughes, and they can get a stop from Thatcher Demko, maybe. But there's a lot of hope there right now. I wouldn't be confident going in. I'm more confident than I was last offseason, where I thought they weakened their team, letting Markstrom go out the door and letting Tyler Toffoli go out the door and letting Chris Tanev go out the door. They went to the second round against Vegas in the bubble, and the prevailing sentiment was, oh, look, they went to the second round. And yeah, but they were getting caved in every game, and Thatcher Demko was making 50 saves a night.
Yeah,
and that, good, but they weren't really in that series. Let's not kid ourselves here. And then their team got weaker, and it showed last year. I think they made some improvements. So they should be in the mix. Calgary, if Daryl Sutter can install his system, they're not going to be a team that's very entertaining to watch. Daryl doesn't care. He's interested in winning games 2-1, and that's what he's going to try and do with the personnel that they've got. They brought in Blake Coleman to play that way, Nikita Zadorov. Those are Daryl Sutter type of players. LA should be in the mix as well, but honestly, it doesn't really impress me all that much. And I would pick 5 teams in the Central that I think could finish ahead of at least. I know what I'm saying in my head, but it's difficult to articulate it. There's going to be 3 teams in the Pacific that get in just because they're in the top 3. After that, I think all 5 teams in the Central Division that I think are going to be in the mix could have more points than the 4th place team in the Pacific. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. I think the same.
In other words, I think 2 wild cards could come from the Central, and then that bodes well for Chicago, because I don't know if they're going to be in the top 3. I think they're going to have to find their way into a wild card. They could, but they'd have to prove that to me at this point. They could be in the top 3. But the chance that there could be 2 wild cards, I think, and a real good chance from the Central, I think Chicago's got a chance for sure.
Well, yeah, I got Colorado obviously finishing first. Probably St. Louis and the Jets won the 2-3 spots. And probably Minnesota. Hopefully they could figure out Kirill over there in Russia. And I think the Hawks could take that 2nd spot, hopefully.
Did you see that video of Kirill Kaprizov over there in Russia?
Yes,
right
I did.
Now?
Yeah, I did.
Oh my word!
Yeah.
That is as Russian as I've ever seen.
Yep.
Running around with
on
the
that
tire
turf,
in the rain.
On that turf, yeah.
The sport court in the middle of a relatively unkempt lawn with a sand track with more weedy lawn in what looked like someone's yard. But then there was kind of some corporate signage and a structure.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on there. Kind of a kiddie jungle gym. There was a basketball hoop, I think I spotted.
We just needed 2 guards.
Look.
2 guards with AKs. That would be perfect.
Yeah, it was an interesting look.
It's probably the park right outside of Gulag somewhere.
It was an interesting look. But I'm with you. I think if they can get him sorted out, I think Minnesota had a really good season last year. I think they strengthened their team a little bit as well. So I sort of see that working itself out as the top 3, and then we'll see if Chicago can keep themselves in the mix. But they've certainly put themselves in a position to contend much more than they had a year ago, when I thought, quite frankly, they were going to be a bottom 5 team when the puck dropped in January. But now I look at them as a team that has an opportunity to at least surprise some people.
Yeah. I said the same thing. I bet with Mike. I thought Detroit would finish higher than the Hawks, and I think Lankinen actually saved them a little bit. It was very lucky, because Subban and Delio just weren't having it. They weren't feeling it this season, and
Lankinen was a rookie without any support.
Yeah,
from the defense or his goaltending partner.
Yep.
So, Dave, the Blackhawks last year, their number 1 starting lineup, day 1, their number 1 center was Dylan Strome, and their center position has gotten stronger, as we mentioned prior, with Jonathan Toews coming back, a healthy Kirby Dach coming back, because he was rushed back last year after his wrist surgery, and he was having some issues from his wrist during the season, and I thought it was a bad idea to bring him back. They should have just let him sit. And with the addition of Tyler Johnson, I think that that's pretty big because a lot of people are saying that he should play on the third line, but I think that he should play on the second line with DeBrincat and Kaner because he could play that skilled game. He could shoot, he could pass, and I think that he would fit in well. And he could win faceoffs, which is huge with the possession game, especially with Patrick Kane, because you want him to have the puck as much as possible. How do you think Tyler Johnson fits into this team?
Yeah, I mean, there's a guy we didn't even mention, right? And
Yep.
this is a guy because they made so many changes. You start to blank at times with the amount of activity that Chicago's undergone, but. For real, like Tyler Johnson is a guy that played up the lineup in Tampa Bay for a lot of years until John Cooper went to him and said, look, I need you to play in a different role. And credit to Tyler Johnson, he embraced that and he took it on as a professional, and he was still really effective playing down their lineup. But I think he's going to get an opportunity to take on a few more minutes in Chicago, similar to the role that he was in Tampa Bay, like in, 2015, 16, that sort of era. And I'm with you. Like, I think if you could put him with Kane and DeBrincat, that's a pretty good looking line because you want them worrying about scoring goals. You don't want them worrying about going up against the other team's top line. It's all about identifying skill sets to me and how can I maximize a particular player's skill set. Just because the guy's not the most defensively conscious guy, okay, that's fine. Not everybody is. But if he can shoot it in the net 40 times a year, well, I can find a place on my team for that guy too. And I think that's sort of DeBrincat and Tyler Johnson and Patrick Kane. So if you can put that line together, I think they complement each other well. Johnson, as you said, he's an effect face-off guy. That was his role down in Tampa, down the lineup. He's a great distributor. He can score a little bit as well. But he can get the puck to Patrick Kane, he can get the puck to DeBrincat, and then those guys can do their thing. And if you use them, if Jeremy Colleton uses them in a matchup where he's getting them out on the ice away from the other team's checking line, then they'll be in, I think, really good shape. You don't have to burden them with trying to shut down the McKinnons or the McDavids of the world. You can turn to maybe Jonathan Toews for that type of a role, who's much more defensively conscious. Let those guys play in an offensive situation, start them all the time in the offensive zone, and I think they'd have an opportunity to be a pretty dangerous line.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I honestly believe that Toews still has some offensive production that he could do.
Oh,
but
sure he does.
Within like the next 2 years, I see him going down to, instead of being a top line center that is defensive conscious and has some small offensive upside, to being maybe even a third line center that has huge defensive upside, and he doesn't have to worry about the offensive side of the game.
Dave Bolland.
A full
Davey Bolland.
Well, he would go full Dave Bolland mode, but with much bigger offensive upside.
I'm absolutely fine with that one.
Dave Bolland is an absolute beautician as well. Funny story, I play ball hockey on Monday nights with his brother, if you can believe it.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah. We have known them for a long time. They grew up just down the street from where I am. But Dave Bolland's a beauty. But you're right. Like, I don't know how old you guys are, but the example that I have in mind, do you recall Steve Yzerman at the end of his career in Detroit?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I recall Steve Yzerman at the beginning of his beginning of his career with Detroit.
Okay, so there you go. So, he was a guy that was 100-point-a-year guy, but then by the end of it, he was that third line shutdown center. And it was Pavel Datsyuk doing the scoring, and it was Henrik Zetterberg and Johan Franzen, all those guys. And Steve Yzerman really slid down the lineup and extended his career probably 3 or 4 more years. And I see Jonathan Toews taking a very similar trajectory in his career. Once this contract is up, I think they'd like to have him remain in Chicago. He's probably not going to get 10 and change. but potentially could the Philippe Deneau contract be there for Jonathan Toews in a couple of years, like another 5 or 6 years, because he'll be 32 when the contract is done, another 5 or 6 years at 5.5, and play in that third line role and help support the younger guys as they come up. I could see a fit like that for sure in Chicago. One, you're not eating up all of the money anymore, so there's room to round out the team around the edges. Two, you're supporting the younger guys who are coming in, and their skill is to score. You can take the responsibility defensively off their shoulders. And then three, I think he could be a really good defensive center. So that's sort of how I see Jonathan Toews' career trajectory going. The question is he willing to go into that type of a role? I think he probably would be, because I think he's interested in winning. And, at this point, he's made his money. He's got his cups. Man, why not try and add a fourth to your resume? So that's kind of how I see Jonathan Toews' career trajectory heading over the next, 5 or 6 years.
Matt laughs at me, but I think that Kane and Toews are going to walk away with 5 when it's all said and done.
5?
Yeah.
Wow.
I would like one more for sure. I just
Greedy
don't.
You people
I don't know.
Yeah, man.
We'll take one up here in Toronto.
Are you in Mimico?
I'm not in Mimico, but if I turn my head to the left, which is what I'm doing right now, and I look way off into the distance, Mimico's about 10 minutes down the road.
Oh, sweet.
Well, Dave, we really appreciate you coming on, man. I know you got a busy day tomorrow. We don't want to keep you any longer. But once again, man, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and we'd love to have you on again.
Yeah, you're welcome, guys. It was fun being on. Anytime you have my number, pick up the phone. Be happy to join you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, keep up the good work, man. I love listening every morning. Matt from Chicago, listening at 4:30 a.m. Central Time.
All right,
I'll tell you what, you're the best of us for being able to get up and be a coherent individual at that time of the morning.
I'm a zombie around right now, though, so...
I know what you're saying. Hey, so am I, and I still got 3 hours of sleep on you there, so.
All right, everybody, that's all that we got for you. This is the Tomahawk. We're out of here.